Hello, I'm going to talk about the American haiku poet John Wills. John Wills, known almost exclusively as a haiku poet, was born on the 4th of July, 1921. He grew up in the suburbs of St. Louis and at his grandparents' cottage on Lake Michigan. It was there that he developed his love of and familiarity with nature. He wrote conventional poems and published critical essays on Conrad and Eliot and taught English at the college level for 20 years. Then he discovered haiku and himself as a poet in 1968. In the summer of 1970, a research grant enabled him to write and study haiku in Matsuyama, Japan. From 1969 to 1971, 5 of his collections were published by Georgia Southern College. From 1971 to 1978, Wills lived on a farm in the mountains of Tennessee with his second wife, Marlene. They tried to make their land and their writing pay. An attempt that ended in failure and an amicable divorce, amicable in quotes. Marlene Wills became a major haiku poet in her own right and is now known as Marlene Mountain. She later developed MS and a penchant for controversial and avant-garde styles and subject matters. Here is one of her haiku, a conventional one. Thrush Song, Days Before the Thrush. As for John, many or most of his best-known haiku were written during this period. Their subject matter, the flora and fauna and seasons of an area within sight of the famous Blue Ridge. Here we go with the haiku of John Wills and occasional commentary by myself. The fields, the rocky den of the copperhead, hepatica. Sound devices, conscious and unconscious and accidental, play a large role in the haiku form simply because of its brevity and quickly either strengthen or weaken individual efforts. In this copperhead poem, the assonance of the short O's and E's and runs throughout the haiku, along with the alliteration of K and P and D sound, emphasizing the sudden hardness and sharpness of the rock and potentially of the copperhead. The juxtaposition of this, the darkness, camouflage, and hidden danger, with the softness of the white early spring flowers, they're reaching for the sun, while both the flower and the possibly coiled or striking snake are both close to the cool, damp ground, yet dependent on the spring sun and warmth. This is the unstated subject matter of this haiku, all that along with the somewhat cacophonous music of the sound devices. More haiku. Spring wind, one path and then another through the grasses. A horse moves through the deep swale, butterflies. Here we have a simple moment, one that I unintentionally reproduced in a haiku of my own. Grouse, leaving a wake, fritillaries. More haiku of Wills. Another step, and half the brush turns quail. November evening, the faintest tick of snow upon the corn stalks. From the section The Streams, going where the river goes, first day of spring. This haiku is one to which I repeatedly applied the much-loved Japanese principle of honkadori, the copying of ideas or much admired fragments from poems of the past, following the flow of sap, first spring, comma is a small orange butterfly. More wills. Dusk, from rock to rock, a water thrush. As for this one, Will's editor, Rod Wilmot, comments, listen to how the sounds of the words imitate their meanings, and how meaning is suggested by relationships among sounds. The rock and rock condenses still further the sense of stoppage that is concentrated in the K of dusk. He goes on to say, but there is one word more. Water thrush transforms the scene in rhythm and rhyme as well as in meaning. The word itself is all movement, gathering into its flitting the two prepositions, in contrast to the immobile rock. Water thrush is all lightness and vitality. And while the usk of dusk has stopped, the ush of water thrush goes on happening. And on with this haiku. Boulders just beneath the boat. It's dawn. Where the rocks drop off and clouds take over. This is one that I've tried to improve on or add something to myself with no success, honkadory or no honkadory. The farms, mule dragging dawn across the ridge. And I might add that this thing goes on, but I'm not giving you the whole thing. Anybody who wants to hear my whole treatise can email me and I'll send it to them. Before the window, she loosens her hair, an evening of spring. About the white chrysanthemums, dusk comes early. At this point, Wills himself acknowledges that nature and lover at all, he is not a saint. I stop and watch the wild geese pass, then badger my wife. Winter moon, the farmhouse alone with its shadows. From rivers, here and there, about the hills, the river meets the moon. Rowboat, filled with river, autumn clouds. The forests, here today, between my hat and boots. My hand moves out, touches the sun on a log. Forest pool where yellow leaves rise to meet themselves. With dusk, the spruce withdraws into the woods. Not too much longer. The lakes and seas, backcountry lake, about the evening rain, the smell of fish. A big bass fades into the tree beneath me. Behind the mink, the moon has come to pieces. Waterfowl without a name. Read shadows. At the last section of his book, Read Shadows, the mountains. The hill girl pushes snow aside, young scallions. This haiku has it all. the unspoken eroticism of the young, kneeling teenager, her pale winter skin, her hands pushing the snow aside to reveal youth and vitality, the strongly scented but very palatable young scallions. Hepatica, how soft and blue the Blue Ridge. Laurel in bloom, she lingers a while at the mirror. Storm, beneath the linden tree, the fragrance. Denver the bear, beyond the great rocks, storm clouds. Nothing to say to my shadow tonight, end of the year. The ridge, beyond this ridge, and those beyond. And I'll finish this off with a haiku from myself, written in the woods in at Mud Pond, Britannia on Friday. And I have an epilogue. The chickadee, the seed, march, silence. After years of travel, ghostwriting, and editing in the Deep South, John Wills settled in Florida, became a deadbeat ex-husband, and died there in 1993. His ex-wife, Marlene Mountain, tried to put the more recent past behind her and arrange a tribute to the haiku master he was, rather than the financially unforthcoming ex-husband he became. I think that was 1995. That was the last I heard of him, although Marlene corresponded for a number of years afterwards with my late companion Ruby Spriggs, and even offered to trade a copy of John Wills' River for some of Ruby's publication efforts. And one more thing, a final haiku from me. Nothing more to say. Deep shadows of the March sunset. Thank you.